guys are all like awake and functioning.
Which fries too?
Right, just barely, right? Just barely.
Yeah.
Do you guys have a long way to drive home?
Yeah.
We just moved for like 6 hours.
So how long? Hour? 2 hours? 2.5? 4. Woo! 4. Hello? What? 3 minutes? Oh, 40 minutes. I thought you were like, I was like, wow, you live in the arena next door? That's awesome! Yeah, for you guys?
2 to 4.5.
Whoa.
Depending on traffic, or depending on whether you get lost, or
Well,
just...
yeah, like I head back home, and then after that, then I have to go to my university, which is in a different city.
Oh, okay, so you have
That's a
2
long trip.
stops.
Yeah, I have
Oh,
2
okay.
stops.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, one for
Otherwise,
each.
it's 2 or 4.5 is like you drive there and then like turn around.
Yeah, it's just like,
drive
yeah,
back.
this 2.5-hour red light, it's just,
It's a really long light.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really,
Yeah,
it's really
really.
long. Testing your patience.
it's like, come on!
And for you?
30 minutes.
30 minutes. Okay.
Because I take the city bus.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Easy. That's
Yeah.
easy. That's
No
easy.
drive, no nothing. Yes. Scooter.
Fantastic. Yes, sir?
I have about 15 hours.
15 hours.
What?
Yeah. Wow. Where are you going?
I have to swim to Europe.
You're gonna swim to Europe.
Can you do that in 15 hours?
Yeah, well, let's
What a
16.
man!
That's impressive. That is. You must be obsessed with sharks. Do you just like fight them off, or do you keep like? Is there like a shark spray?
It's not me.
Oh, okay. All right. Oh, okay. Nice. Nice. Well done. So I'm Carrie, and I just I keep all my panels like really.
Short.
Hello. Hi. How are you? I got to hold her rose earlier.
Alright, people.
So I like to keep things really, really informal. Like it's just my chance to like just chat with you guys and hear what you have to say. And so you don't have to have like I have a formal question about what you think about. You know, if there's just something you want to share, a thought you want to share, or stuff like that. So don't feel any pressure, anyone. You have. I feel like that's must be the hardest thing about like cosplay is just like carrying all of your objects all day long and like figuring out.
Every time I ask someone for a picture, I feel so bad. I'm like, oh, let me put this down. Let me find.
Like, can I get a picture?
Take off
It's
my
gonna take
gloves.
me 15 minutes to be ready to take the picture. I hope you don't mind. Are you Indiana Jones?
In the flesh.
In the flesh. It is my favorite ride at Disneyland.
Okay.
I love it. It's my favorite
I
ride.
used to work there.
And the end with the boulder. That genuinely, the first time I rode it, I genuinely was like, whoa, 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 whoa! How are we getting out of this one? Yeah. And but I met my parents. I moved to LA like 5 years ago, and my parents came to visit, and I'd never been to Disneyland. So my parents took me as a grown adult to Disneyland, and I literally like I was such a joy. I got to Main Street and I like cried a little. I was like, oh my god. But we had such a great time, and then my parents and my sister came, so we got to take her for the first time. And then next January, my nieces come. My parents and my sister and my niece are coming, so we get to take my niece for the first time. So we keep going. But oh, thank you. Does this say me or does this say Erica?
No, it's actually you.
Okay. I've had a lot of different names this weekend based on
Also,
like,
I think you had Scott yesterday.
yeah, Scott. Well, because Scott did a.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, he did the thing. Well, I was Laura for a while, and then I was. I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. But someone at the very end of the panel was like, "Did you guys know?" At our panel, me and Erica got mixed, and so
I know.
like, "Did you? I think you guys have the wrong cards." And we're like, "Oh yeah, we talked about this like an hour ago."
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know why he likes that game, but it was a fun game.
It's always, except it was quick. It was a lot quicker this year because everyone just kind of was like, "Oh, my guy, no, okay, then I'm this."
Yeah, it was like I came in late and I only heard 3 clues and I already knew who I was like, well then I'm Laura because I'm not me and I'm a girl, and someone else had already guessed that they were Erica, and I was like, well, that's easy. Easy. Did you have a question?
Yeah, you ever been to the Pinky hot dog? The one in California?
Oh no, I've never actually been. I mean, I know which one you're talking
Yeah,
about.
that's all the celebrities all eating that.
Yeah, and there's all, like, honestly, every time I drive by, day or night, does not matter, there's always a line outside that
Yeah,
hot dog.
yeah.
So it's either the most delicious hot dogs ever, or they just are so historic that people will eat them even though they taste terrible. I'm
I
not
know.
sure which, because I haven't had them.
You should go there and say, I'm Carl, you know. Yeah.
I thought that, and like demand, I'd be like, I'm famous,
I know.
I demand a hot dog.
Hot dog in there.
Here's my $2.
Oh, yeah.
You can have the hot dog even.
And make sure you put a picture of me. right there.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
You,
You can
have
always
to
have-
put my picture up. Like, I come with my picture.
Yeah, right there says mine.
I'll be like, I'll pay you $5 extra for this hot dog if you'll
Yeah.
just hang me next to Glenn Close.
Yeah, true.
Right? Yeah. So that's a good plan. I'll try it when I get
Yeah.
back.
Oh yeah.
Yes. Anyone? Yes. Yeah. For a second, it was really weird. Just out of the corner of my eye, I thought it was hit. Like, it looked like he was like growing something out of his ear. Yes.
I was going to ask, who is your favorite character from Madoka and why is it Sayaka?
And why is it Sayaka? It's so interesting. Your question feels like it's not really a question. It's so strange.
You can just fan out it.
Yeah. Oh, it's definitely what not Sayaka. You know, it's so interesting because it's been a long time since I was asked this question, and it's the first time someone asked this question since Rebellion. Because prior to Rebellion, my answer always was Homura. But now I feel like that can't be my answer anymore. And so, who would be my favorite character now? I think I'm gonna have to like revert back over. I'm gonna have to change teams and go with Madoka, just because of who she is, and I think that she's just a very like genuine character. And yes, there she is. There's our lady right there. I just think she's a very genuine character, and like I like the fact that she's everyone else like to kind of like made their wish just based on like whatever like emotional whim they had at that moment. Though mine was definitely coerced. I mean, come on. You show up you can either die right now in this car accident with your parents, or you can be a magical girl. Which do you choose? You're like, well, I guess I'll keep living. Thank you. But I like that she really gives it a lot of thought. About because she wants one it's not just about her. That it's gonna matter to everyone. That it's something that's really gonna benefit. So I like that she kind of weighs that choice. Yes.
Not really a question,
Yeah.
but I feel like Kyoko might actually be the best magical girl because the way I see it, essentially I would assume that Kyubey picks girls on the probability that they're likely to turn into a witch. So I feel like he kind of messed up picking Kyoko because if she didn't turn into a witch after she watched her whole family be killed by her own father because of what she wished, she's never turned into a witch.
Right, yeah, we had this, oh my god, that's so funny. I feel like every conversation we've had so far has been like a debate that we've already had like amongst the cast.
Disneyland ride, like I feel like we might be related to each other somehow.
Yeah, right? It's like we're like woo, woo. Yeah, we've had this thing, because someone was asking like, what do you think it would take to, turn into it? I was like, Kyoko will never
gonna be a witch.
Never gonna be a witch, ever. Because it's like if that didn't break her, like if she didn't break from any of that, like nothing will break that woman. Like nothing.
She's so cool.
Yeah. And Lauren's awesome, who plays it. So I love those kinds of. I never book those kinds of characters because like they're always like really like, sassy and like I don't care, and I'm like I never. Which is in life I have that attitude a lot of the time, but I don't ever sound like. I guess like my voice just sounds a lot nicer. So like Satsuki was like my first villain in all the years I've done, and that's not true. One other time, I played a villain for 3 lines because I was like this other character. It was in a Pokemon episode. I was like a guest star, and she was like this archaeologist, and she was like totally like awesome and smart and whatever and good and da-da-da-da-da. And at the very, very, very end, it was like this weird moment where she was like, "Just kidding, I'm blah blah blah." She like literally pulls off her face. It's like some villain you've never heard of and don't know anything about, and then she's like, "I'll get you next time," and like runs away. So I literally had I pulled off my face, had 3 lines as a villain, and like that was it. So until then like Satsuki was my first like villain, like antagonist or whatever. So I guess I like just sound really nice. So I never get to play them. So I'm always in awe of those kinds of characters, or like actors who have like really like smoky like textury voices. I'm like I can't do it. I don't have it. So yes. It's so interesting. Everyone comes at it from like a different place. But for me, I was an actor first. That was really what I was doing. And when I was doing specifically getting an anime, when I was doing a play, our director came in one day and said, "Hey, there's this guy, Michael Center Nicholas, and he's like doing this like, I don't know, it's like Japanese cartoon or something, and he's looking for cast members. So, if you want to audition, here's his number." You know what I mean? Which like that never happens. Like directors don't like give out their number to like be like, pass this number out to your actor friends, you know what I mean? So I was like, I'll call him, sure, why not? And I went in, and it was for Berserk, which ended up being the first anime that I did. So I kind of, for me, I sort of got really, really lucky that I literally booked my first audition, and because she was, you know, a lead and we were recording it, we would do it by volumes, and it was such a long show that I was working like, it was every other month for a year. So I just had a chance to like really, really like learn how to do it, you know, and to have like a lot of practice right away. And then once you sort of, like, especially for dubbing specifically, since there's this, a real technical aspect in terms of like the beeps and the thing and the matching and the da-da-da. Most studios schedule based on how many lines per hour that you should be able to like burn or do. And so once you already kind of know how to do that, and you're kind of like in the zone, then it's very easy for you to get other jobs because it's just like word of mouth, and oh, she worked on this, so she know, like, you know what I mean? So it's sort of like, it kind of grew that way. So it was interesting that my very first cartoon audition ever was right after I moved to New York out of college. A friend of mine had gotten into casting, was casting this cartoon. She's like, hey Carrie, do you want to audition for a cartoon? I was like, yeah. But to be honest, like, prior to going in for that audition, I don't think I ever really thought about the fact that like, there was someone who did that job who wasn't Mel Blanc, you know what I mean? Like, because I grew up on Looney Tunes, you know, so I was like, oh, wait, this is a thing? And this is like and people like do this as like a living? And so I think that I was like well into doing it before I started to realize like what it was, and then like, oh my gosh, and then meeting more people and saying that people were like really like, that was their thing, that they were doing it, and just like, and I've always been so impressed and so amazed at the people who just have like a million voices inside of them, like a Sean Schemmel or like a Scott McNeil, like just they have like all these like crazy people living inside their heads, because that's not necessarily how I work. So and I'm just like, I'm always like, it's amazing because you're always just in awe of, you know, everyone else around you and like what they're bringing to the table, and just it's awesome. I feel like I started answering your question and then I just started talking, but I did answer your question ultimately? Okay, perfect. Yes?
Have you ever had like a moment when you're in the booth and, you know, there's like a line or a certain scene and you feel like you were personally attached to that and you like had to take a step back or something?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Oh, I'm a very emotional person, so like I get like very attached, and for whatever reason I also end up getting cast in characters that have like a lot of big like I'm Yamraha in Magi, right? And she's like, it's like this fun, bright, colorful, ha 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 ha, you know what I mean? You get to the end of like season 2, and I was like, what is happening? Like I didn't expect to record that when I was going in to record that. I was like, didn't expect that from that show, you know? So and I do remember specifically in Kill La Kill, a little bit of a spoiler, so I'm not going to say exactly what happened, but there was a particular moment where Satsuki has to like apologize to someone. It's the first time in the entire series that she's done that, and it's like a really like special moment. And I remember in the booth being like, hold on a second, okay, like I'm not gonna like you usually like, don't cry. And I actually did a video game recently that I can't talk about because I'm on NDA about it, but it's part of it. It's part of like an existing chain that I've got to finally be in. And so when you have those moments where you're like stepping into something, and then I had like and in those worlds there's like very iconic things or objects or stuff like that. I'm trying to be really super vague. But I had I literally just saw the line. I didn't even say it, like I was reading down, I saw the line, and I was like, I literally burst into tears. I was like, and like the director was actually Skyping in for mine. He couldn't be there that day, and so but I just looked at the engineer, and the engineer was like apparently like this happens a lot. I was like, oh. Okay, and I was literally just, I was like, Carrie, do not sound like you're crying. Do not sound like you're crying on this line. Do not sound like you're crying on this line. Because the director wasn't there, so I didn't want him to be like, where's she? I'm like, so there's like I definitely have had a bunch of those moments, and especially when you get to like really be with a character for a long period of time, because you can't book a character that you aren't relating to or attached to, and you do like in life we naturally see things from our point of view, right? That like, you know, like, oh, that person's so mean because they got in my way, you know what I mean? Like, but, you know, so of course, like once you start to do a show, you start to see it from your character's perspective and her point of view, and suddenly like the characters that are on her side are your friends, and the characters that aren't on your side, like aren't on her side, are suddenly no longer your friend, and you know, so like you can't help but like get involved in that world, you know, because you sort of, it's kind of part of your job in a way.
So you feel like you just get actually connected to those characters?
Absolutely, absolutely. And there's definitely people who, that for whatever reason are more connected. And I also feel like there have been some characters that, whenever you record something, when I hear it, I can suddenly remember everything about my life that was happening when I recorded that, even if it was like 10 years ago. I'll be like, oh my gosh, I was living on 13th Street. Holy crap, I was dating that guy. Like, you just remember, just remember your life. And so I think there's also a lot of characters that are specifically important to me because just the time that I was recording them were really like big times of like change or like growth in my life. And so I'm like, oh my gosh. So whenever I hear those characters or think about those characters, like I have that like this weird like nostalgia feeling for my life too. So there's also kind of that happens for me in terms of, you know, getting attached or whatnot.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course, thanks for asking. And then you had a question, then I'll be right over there to you.
Yeah, well, before I should probably check, has everyone seen Madoka Magica all the way through? So I was going to ask what your thoughts were on the ending.
Which one?
Well, of the series or of the movie?
Basically, the spoilers are okay.
The series or the movie?
The series.
My thoughts on the end of the series?
Yeah.
How do you mean? Like Madoka's choice?
Yeah, and sort of where things end up at the end.
Have you seen the movies?
Yeah. Well, I've seen Rebellion, not the first two.
Oh, okay, right, yeah, because you are not the series. So, you want, ask me one more time.
Okay.
I got it now ask me the
I was
question.
going to ask your thoughts on the ending of the series, like Monica's choice and sort of where everything ends up.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, that's why I was so surprised that they even made Rebellion, because I thought that the way that they ended the series was kind of it was so complete. You know what I mean? In a way, like the choice that she made and how she, like, it's so interesting because there's been so many debates over that particular show. Like whenever I've done like Madoka panels, and I was talking to her, like the debate, like, and Rebellion just made it worse. But it's just amazing to me, like there's so much that's going on inside that show and inside, like all the symbolism and inside the characters and stuff. And everyone really has their own, okay, I'm gonna answer this clearly I'm gonna try more succinctly. Because Madoka is ultimately the story of a hero's journey, which is kind of this like archetype journey for like us as human beings and our spirit in a lifetime. And it's so rare to see it in a girl character in anime, which is what makes Madoka so special. But there's also, because it's doing this like iconic journey, everyone really relates to it. You know, like I feel like however we feel about how that show ended up really just tells us a lot about ourselves, actually, and our own world views. And that's what's always been so interesting to me about all these debates about Madoka, is because you really get to see for each person, like where they're coming from and where they're at, and kind of like what their sort of like life and sort of God view is. Because ultimately, she becomes like Garuka, right? Like, in a way, she becomes the God. You know, she's remade the universe. And then there's this question of like, well, but isn't that something that we keep being told by all these like sages and stuff, that like we do create our own universe? So it's interesting. So for me, like I think that I really take the show in a very philosophical way, which is why the ending of Rebellion is such a big debate, especially for me, with people who are on Homura's side, which I can't even fathom.
Thank you.
Yeah, Sayaka actually, since she's your favorite, Sarah and I got into a huge debate at Anime LA in January about Rebellion and Homura and what she did and why she did it. And Sarah was arguing that she was like, it was selfless, that it wasn't just about her, that she was actually trying to protect Madoka. And I was like, that is not what's happening. And so we got into a huge debate about it. So I thought that the way that the original series ended was like it ended exactly as I expected it to, as it should have for me and from my point of view. So I was really satisfied, and then that's why I was so confused that they made Rebellion. I was like, what story do they tell now? Like, where do you pick that up from? So.
It was weird because when I rewatched it, I got to the end and I couldn't. I liked the ending. It was very satisfying for me, but I couldn't shake this feeling that not much had changed in the grand scheme of things.
Right?
In Rebellion or?
No, in the series.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
It's like
But,
there were little details that were different, obviously, but the general picture was exactly the same.
well, but that's the whole thing, right? But what did really change was like the perspective, the information, the knowledge that she has. You know, and again, like if you're talking about it from a philosophical point of view, you know, they before like there's this saying that's like before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. And that like this idea that like nothing changes, the physical universe doesn't suddenly change, but like because you're so changed, you're so different, the way you experience and see everything is different. And so again, for me, because I come from a very spiritual and philosophical point of view, like that all made sense to me. Like, of course, nothing changes. Like your parents didn't change who they are, but how you perceive them, how you think about them, your feeling changed. You know what I mean? So it's like there's a significant change, but not like an external change.
Also,
It's kind of where I land. Yes.
For Madoka, like it kind of goes back to when she's talking to Sayaka, and they're watching Kyosuke, and she basically she's telling Sayaka, you know, I could have like kind of undid this for you, but then like you wouldn't have your wish. So instead of just being like, oh, I wish there wasn't magical girls and nobody did this, because Madoka said she was respecting the wish that all those girls made, that like their wishes were important. So if she had changed everything so much,
Right.
she also would have gotten rid of everything that those girls fought for.
Yeah.
So she wanted.
And then you have a lot of like
Yeah.
time-space continuum issues.
But not suffer. Yeah.
Right, yeah. Because you do have to like honor, I mean, because also if she unwished that, then she's not honoring her own journey
And
too,
that's
in
what
a way.
makes Madoka and Homura so different, is that Madoka honored every single girl's wish. She said like, it's okay that you fought for your wish, but you shouldn't have to suffer for it. Whereas what Homura did at the end was take back Madoka's wish, essentially.
Right.
She did.
Because Homura only ever cared about what she wanted to
Homura
get.
didn't honor Madoka's wish, whereas Madoka honored everyone else.
Yes, because Madoka's a nicer person
Yeah.
than Homura.
Yeah.
But you can also understand why Homura got so crazy. Can you
yeah.
imagine like every day you wake up and live out the worst day of your life. And you try to change one thing and you fail. Like you wake up every day, Groundhog Day, over and over and over again, and you are just gonna fail and fail and fail and fail and fail and fail, and that's your entire eternity. Like that would drive a person insane. Like that would be the worst possible
like
torment.
26 or something. Like if you do the math of like how many times he said she went back, she would be like a 26-year-old magical girl stuck in high school too. Like. Still,
Right, like painful. But then you also sort of, then again, because I come at from a very philosophical point of view, like I look at that and go like, where am I doing that to myself? You know what I mean? Like, because don't we do this in our own minds? We just like, we keep reliving certain things, and I'll be like, how do I get off my own loops that I can't seem to jump off of, that are just causing me pain? So I feel like I both related to her very strongly, and like just felt bad for her, so she was sort of challenging. Well, I think you had a question.
Yeah, how the like celebrities always the hotel they always use different names. You ever do that?
No.
Never do that.
No.
Because they don't want the stalker coming there find out what hotel.
I don't have stalkers that I'm aware of, so I don't really worry about it. But to be honest, especially when I go to like conventions and stuff, like they book it, so I think that it just ends up being under the under the convention name.
Okay.
Whatever. But I've actually, I don't know. I don't have a criminal mind, so I think I'm not good at gauging against that. But I mean, I've heard other actors have had problems or whatever.
Yeah.
I personally haven't had any, so I haven't had to do anything to guard against that or whatever. But I'd be curious about what name I'd pick. I'd be like, Selena Kyle.
Yeah.
I actually used to call my friend who got me into comic books up at his work. He used to work at Marc Jacobs. And every time I called, I would use some other Like I would use like a comic book
Yeah.
alter ego name. And so he always knew it was me based on whatever name it was. And nobody ever, like none of the receptionists ever caught on to, I was like, even Barbara Gordon, I was like, Barbara Gordon. They were like, okay. Like they know, I was like, clearly no receptionist there ever read a single comic, because I did some really obvious ones.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, half of me hopes that never happens, and half of me hopes that someday I have to. Like, I don't know how I feel about that. That's so weird.
Yeah, you never know.
So I think we had a question here, and then I'll pop back over there. Yeah.
You said you were very philosophical. Like, did you study any like old philosophical teachings or anything?
Well, I mean, I didn't like go to school for philosophy,
No,
but I think I've just been reading. I mean, like I just ever since I was like 15 or 16, I've just had like a lot of these like bigger questions, and so I think I've just been reading on this stuff like for a long time, and you know, like I read Eckhart Tolle, Sri Nisargadatta Maharashi, you know, I Am That. I've read a lot of Joseph Campbell, so I think, and I also, we weren't like a religious household. I don't remember, like my mom was raised something and my dad was raised something, and neither of them really liked what they were raised as. So we didn't go to church because it wasn't like he wanted this and she wanted like, so we never went to like church. They just sort of taught us how to be like good people, you know, and then I grew up in a Orthodox Jewish neighborhood, and so I think that I've just always had a lot of people around me that are of different religions. So I've just been like fascinated by it because I've never had like this one way of thinking. I've just sort of always been exposed to all of them, and to me they all really feel like they're sort of teaching similar things, you know what I mean? So I was kind of always looking for the common denominator, because I figured that must, like that's, to me it feels like that's where the answer must lie. You know, the sort of like the seeds, because the seeds of all of them are kind of basically saying the same things about like how to live and what life is about, you know, and so I feel like I try to focus on those concepts and less about like, I'm a Buddhist, I'm a this, I'm a that. But I've sort of like been exposed to all those things and have friends who are like, deeply, like I have friends who are like you know, devout Catholics, you know what I mean? And we talk about, and to hear about God from their point of view, and to hear about God from like my Jewish friends' point of view, like, and you know what I mean? So it's, and I think that because I never came from a very specific, and I'm not like, there's a right and a wrong, it's very easy for me to talk with people about it, because I'm not like, well, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard, you know, like I just like to hear, and I think I'm just fascinated with this idea of faith and what that means to people and what it gives, what it brings to our life, you know. But then I also recently, oh man, I'm totally gonna bomb this. I heard like a definition of faith recently from like not even a religious source that I love the definition, and it was something about like when you take desire and you mix it with emotion, like that's what faith is. So for that was really about like kind of like willingness to like create, because ultimately, not to like just way far off topic, but like ultimately, you know, we only have these concepts because we have questions about like, you know, who are we and why are we here and like what are we here to do, and like we all want to live a life that has meaning, right? And what is that? What is that? And what is that? And but I think it's a very individual question to find out like what gives our life meaning, and then to live that way, you know. And I have answers like, oh well, having loving, intimate relationships with others, like we're here to experience each other, and so like relationships are very important to me. So you kind of have to like call out like your own set of like what your values are, you know. And I think that, you know, there is a lot of like relating to others that matters, and really finding like the things that are important to you and getting them out into the world, you know, because we all have our own thing to add to the pot. Whatever. Okay, I'm like way off topic now.
It was still
okay. So there's your lecture, everyone. I hope everyone learned something today. Yes, sir.
I feel back. It was a really interesting discussion, so I don't want to like derail it too much. But I just want to know, kind of besides work, like what the daily life of voice actor is like. You know, hobbies or stuff you do in your time.
Oh, that's so interesting. You know what? I personally am kind of type A, and I'm like a bit of a workaholic. Like I like being busy, So people are like, what do you do when you're not working? I'm like, I work. You know, like I made a web series last year, you know, and I taught myself to edit so that I could cut it together, you know, and I'm releasing that. And I feel like, I don't know, I feel like this compulsion to always be like growing or learning, whatever. I feel like I'm always on the learning curve for something. So I feel like my hobby might be like self-growth. I don't know, maybe it's an addiction, I'm not really sure. But I also find that, especially as an actor, the thing that I think is so important is just like taking care of like your physical body. Like, so I work out a lot. I recently took up running at the behest of very close, trusted, wonderful, confidant friend in my life, and who was like, you should start running. Because I'm a very emotional person, and he was like, you need to focus on your physical body and like to help, you know, like ground that or whatever. And it was awful and terrible. It was like the worst thing ever, and I hated him for saying, every time I was running, I hated him. But after like 10 weeks, I finally like kicked in, and like really I could tell the difference. So I feel like, you know, now there really is like a lot of, I dedicate a lot of time to making sure that I'm, you know, running or working out or something like physical, getting some kind of physical exercise every day to help keep my like emotions kind of cool. And so I like running and hiking, and I recently started like a lifting class, which is a joke. I'm like the worst, but I'm gonna get better. And then I think a lot of it is just like reading and being aware. I think the hardest thing for me is to find time to like watch other shows and like keep up with like what else is happening, because when you're so busy working and like reading scripts, then like you don't have as much time to like sit down and like watch cartoons. And like that's actually the thing that whenever I'm flying, I'm always like trying to like watch all the different like cartoons that are out that I haven't had a chance to see yet. You know what I mean? That I've seen like YouTube clips of, you know. So but I think it would be different for different people. But I think, you know, as much as you can make your like, I personally don't like this idea of like work and life balance. Like I have this work that's somehow separate from the rest of my life. You know what I mean? Like, oh, now I'm living my life and now I'm working. Like I don't like that sort of paradigm for a lifetime. So for me, it's like kind of all like jumbled together, and I get really excited when certain things that I do pay me money, and then there's a bunch of things I do that don't pay me any money, you know? So, I don't know. Like, I just did a film competition, like a 2-week film competition. Why? I don't know. Because I was like, yeah, let's do it! I'm in it to win it now! Woo! You know, like, because, but I met all these, like, awesome people that are now, like, a part of my life. And, you know, so in my downtime, I work. Yeah, wait, was there a question over there before I go back to a repeat? No? Yeah, okay, yeah.
I was just asking this earlier and I just forgot, but when, what was it like? Like, did you feel like you made any changes, or like, what was the process like, basically going back and re-recording everything that you already did for like the first film? Like, obviously Rebellion was different, you had to like...
Right, well, what was so interesting was actually, we had to re-record for the first, sorry that I cut you off, but I kind of saw where you were going.
Yeah.
So the first movie, we had to go in and re-record, but it actually, for me, it wasn't that, I recorded my stuff like almost last when we were doing the series. Like normally, in a normal situation, I would have recorded first because I'm in the beginning or whatnot. But it turns out that like I actually wasn't the original mommy. They cast someone else, and she didn't work out. So they fired her, and they recast it. And I was there for something else. They're like, "Can you come in and do this like callback for us real quick?" And I was like, "Sure." And I went in, and I was like, "Oh, I vaguely remember these sides from like several months ago." And then they called me in. They were like, I left, an hour later they called me, they were like, okay, you booked it, can you record tomorrow at 3? And I was like, yes. So I actually recorded very late in the series, so that the time between doing the series and doing the movie wasn't a huge break for me. But I do remember that there was something very technically difficult for Mommy, like where her voice has to live, was like a very, like the placement of it physically was challenging. So I remember like when I was doing the series it was like really trying to like learn how to get that place consistently. And I remember when I had to go back and redo it, I was like, oh God, oh no. Like I was like, oh God, I don't remember what I did, I don't remember what I did. I was really nervous about, could I find that place, could I find whatever it was I got that was like working for me? Because it was just enough time to have forgotten, but like just enough time to not have forgotten that it was like hard. So, but yeah, so for me, like coming back to it, like that was my biggest concern, was just like remembering, and then like getting certain notes. I was like, oh, I remember her giving me that note about wanting to sound like that. I don't remember how I fixed it. Like, so the first session was just like a lot of that for me in terms of her, because she's challenging because she's the mentor, she's the guide, you know what I mean? So she has to be like big sister and like nurturing, and like I kept like, she doesn't sound pretty. She has something like the pretty girl, and I was like, I don't even know what that means. I don't know how you sound pretty. Like I was like, it's either pretty or it's not pretty. I don't.
Stereotype.
I was like, yeah, but I was like, I don't know how you don't know how to do pretty. You know what I mean? You're like it's pretty or it's not pretty. But she also has to like teach them, right? And what she's teaching them is very serious. So when she has to correct them, but she can never sound correcting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it was like hard.
I feel like you really accomplished that then, because I just rewatched this one, and I've watched the English one through like so many times, and I love when you first like you and Homura first interact in like the mall thing. And in the first one, the original, I felt like when you're talking to her, like whatever edits they chose, it was like, oh, I'm mommy, I'm really nice, I'm nice to everyone, so I'm gonna be nice to you. And I really liked in the movie, it came off like very like high school girl, passive aggressive, like I'm giving this for you.
That was a big success. Honestly, thank you for saying that. That was a huge success for me, because that scene,
I cracked up. I was like, this
is so hard. That scene was so hard. Like, no, we recorded it forever, and the producer, what I love about this producer-director team is that like, sometimes you're like, oh God, mommy and daddy are fighting in the other room, whatever. But because they work really hard to make sure they're honoring the Japanese, but also like really translating well to American, and sometimes they like, and so sometimes she needs it to sound a certain way or be in a certain place from the Japanese point of view, but then he's like, but in an American point of view, the attitude would be different. And so like that particular scene was one where it was like, how Americans handle that sort of passive aggressive. I feel like
because
the first time we did it was very Japanese, and the second time we did it was like much more American. But I also feel like part of that was because like by then I knew Homura. You know what I mean? So like I had, like me personally, had more point of view on it. But the first time I didn't know enough to like.
That's why I feel like the movies, they read so well, because you guys are like, well, I already recorded this all the way through, and like you probably recorded Rebellion even pretty close to that, since you were.
Well, we didn't actually record the second movie. The second movie was like because there was, here's a little trade secret. The first movie they did go back in and like reanimate things. So we had to re-record it because they had changed it, so we had to do it again. But the second one they didn't.
They just used the original?
They
I haven't
used
watched
the original
my second one yet. So
they used the original animation, so they were able to just do polls. So we didn't actually have to. There was like there would be like a couple things that they had to change. So I literally had one session to do like 15 lines of like the few little moments that were new or different. So we actually didn't record the second one, so there actually was a huge break. And Rebellion, they were like, yeah, we're gonna do it. And then like it was like crickets, like, oh, maybe not, maybe not. Like, so there was actually a huge break until we actually came back for Rebellion. So we were so excited to, finally like get in there and do it. But the tricky thing about that show is, especially for all the like, in the fights, like the exerts, like the Homura and Mommy's big fight. It took more than one session to record that because it's so long and I was like passing out. But if you recorded first, then like you got to set it, right? But then if you recorded second, there'd be this thing like, no, it sounds too close to what Christina's doing. So like if you were the first one to lay down tracks, then they had to sound different from you, because it's all like, we're all girls, we're all about the same age, and the same kinds of exerts that are happening because we're in this fight. But it'd be like, oh, no. So if I laid it down first, then Christina had it match me, had it like deviate from me. But then the second part, she had already laid her stuff down. Like, no, it's too close to Christina. No, it's too close to Christina. No, it's too, and I'd be like, ah! So you're like trying to do sounds that like don't sound like what you, because you sound less than like not like her. And I actually was leaving that session, ran into Christine, who's Madoka, and we were walking out, and then Christina pulled up for another session. So we're all in the parking lot, and I was like, man, I just got out of that session. I was like, can you stop acting how I'm gonna act before I get to act that way? So that was, but we all get along really well.
That's so awesome.
It was such fun. And when the English version came out, I think I told you, I organized a cast watching party. So we all got together, the Madoka cast with like the director. But even then, whenever we had the director in the room, so we were like, especially Sarah, she was like grilling him. Whoa, wait. But if Cubey said da-da-da-da, and that would mean, like, we are constantly in debates. And poor Alex, like, he's pulled his hair out trying to do the adaptation for it, you know, because there's so much going on. And, like, even, like, a Rebellion's playing, and we're still, like, and we're half watching it because we're like getting into this like lively debate. It was poor like Alex was like, he was like standing against the wall in the window, we're all on the couch and we're like, yeah, no, but she said it, no, but Alex, and he'd be like, well, you know, this, and we're like, no, what's no? And he's like, well, no, because in the original Japanese, we're like, that's dumb, like, yeah. So it's been a really fun show for all those reasons.
Wow.
This is like a Madoka panel. Yes, Madoka/philosophy. Oh, I just have this like ringing
Then I have
sound.
a Slayers question then.
Oh, Slayers!
Do you have any fun, like, behind-the-scenes stories for Slayers? You said you were also part of the...
Yeah, I produced Revolution and Evolution.
Yeah, so I want to know, like, if there was any, like, fun, you know, behind-the-scenes stories that you might
You know, I think the best thing about that was like to revisit it, and everyone was like super excited. So it was really we were set on getting the cast back, you know. And for the most part, we did. I think there's only like maybe like one character that we had to end up replacing, and then of course there were new characters, which I got one of them. But our biggest challenge with Slayers is that Eric Stewart literally moved to Nashville 3 days before we started recording. Like the weekend before we started recording, he was moving to Nashville. You know, and we were like, but, and so we had to, and he won't fly. He doesn't fly, he drives.
Is he, like, scared of heights?
I don't know, but he doesn't fly. Doesn't fly. We were like, oh God. So the hardest thing for us for that one was like trying to do everyone's schedules and figuring out like when he'd be able to come drive, because he just moved down there with his wife and 2 kids. You know what I mean? So he's like, he can't be like, hey, we got to Nashville. See ya, lady. I'll be back in a week because it's going to take me a day and I have to drive there and then I'll record and then I'm back. You know what I mean? So his wife was like, no. And so, but he was like, but thank goodness, like, it was really important to him to come back and do the show, you know, so we at least had that on our side. So we had to like try and schedule everyone over here, and they were like, oh, well, can I do on Thursday? Like, no Thursday, Thursday's Eric. You know, like, and so I like saved all these days, and we're like, okay, if he gets in the morning, then he can do something in the afternoon, and then the morning, and then we'll give him like a 2-hour lunch break, and then this, and then that, and then we'll make sure not to record the yelly stuff, and this, like, we had like plotted out, right? And we're like, okay, and I started booking everyone around him, and everything was fine, and then he was like, I'm not gonna be able to make it on Wednesday, I won't be able to make it. I was like, no! The entire production schedule was booked around you, and now I have to literally rebook everything. I was like,
God.
How
I'm
long
gonna
did that
kill you
take?
with my bare hands. I'm gonna kill you. Especially since people were like, can I do this day? I was like, no, I can't. But like, I was like, no, you can't. Those are Eric's days. Sorry, we have to work something else out. And I called back, I'm like, hey, remember how you wanted Thursday? And they were like, well, no, I already booked that. Like, so it was a nightmare. It was a nightmare. But thank God it all worked out. And of course, he ended up finishing early, which was good for us. But yeah, so that was my one like, I want to strangle you with my bare hands back behind the scenes story for Slayers, but it worked out so well, and I loved the fact that we had a chance to work on that series, because when I first did Berserk was when the original Slayers was coming out, and I went to this like convention in New Jersey, and Lisa Ortiz was there, and everyone was like going nuts over this like Carrie. I was like, oh, what is this thing? So then of course I had to check it out. I love Lena Inver. Like, she's a great character. I mean, so good, you know. And I was like, wow. So it was really, really exciting that I got a chance to then like work on it again, like, you know, 8 years later or whatever it was.
I've got a small question for the ending of Slayers also. I was kind of angry on how they changed Zelos at the end for how he fought Reza.
Oh.
How he just kind of switched. It was like, oh, I'm just doing it for that reason. I'm like, you wouldn't fight. I'm trying to think of it in the right way. He wouldn't just say, oh, I don't want them to kill you. I want me to do it. That was the monster.
Yeah, there's
race.
like, you sort of feel like,
it's a bit of a cop-out.
yeah, you sort of feel like, oh, they were writing the story, and then they like ran out of time, or it was like a leftover from an earlier version or something, and then all of a sudden it gets like it flips, and you're just like, wait, what? And I don't know if they were trying to do like, like a reveal.
Yeah, like try to make him a hero-ish kind
Or,
of thing. Like,
yeah, and you're sort of like, wait, what? I know, because actually, I'm very like nitpicky about stuff. I'm very, again, like a little type A. So I'm always the person who's like, in your script he says 12 hours, but then later it says that it's on Saturday, but the original day is Thursday, so if it was 12 hours, it'd have to be Friday. I'm the person who like reads scripts and finds all of that stuff, which a lot of my writer friends come to me specifically for that reason, that I'll like clean up all the logic in their stuff. But I remember when I was reading the scripts and I was like prepping it, remember going to Michael and being like, what? This doesn't make sense, and he was like, well, and I don't remember, he had a reason, he had his own, which is good because he was directing it. So he had his reason for like how it worked out or why, or he filled in like a backstory about it or something. And I don't even remember what he said, but I remember just being like, well, I'm against it. I'm against it, and I want to go on the record as being I'm against this. And he was like, yeah.
You were against how Zella was kind of just.
Yeah, I thought it was weird. I thought it was just it didn't make sense. I don't think they earned it. I don't think it made sense. I don't think they earned it. I don't think that if you really watch it through, like it
That's
tracks.
Not his character at all to do that. You'd be like, oh,
not at all.
He's killing. I don't care who's doing it. Please go ahead.
Yeah, you're like, and they didn't do like no moment earlier in the series like. You can't point back to anything like, oh, but hey, remember that one time it was really weird, that one scene he said nothing. Like nothing. That's why I was literally like, it just feels like it's like, and now this, because we need 15 more minutes of content or something. Yeah, I was against it. I'm on your side. 100%. 100%. Yes. Oh, no, I didn't. No. Well, you're on the hook. No, I'm just kidding. Don't anyone lift your hand above your breastbone, otherwise you're going to have to. That's okay. Hello, welcome. Mr. in the back that came in. Hi. Yep. It's so funny. You're like up here and then you talk to someone, everyone always goes, you're like, who do you think is behind you? I just described it. And you're like, you in the purple shirt with the yellow sparkly hat. And someone will be like, you're like, who else do you think is dressed like you when you're so specific? Yeah.
So when you did the voice for Lux,
Yes.
did you do all that in like a month and then they call you back or they meet you again?
I did all of it. I did a lot of it all in one session. I think I've only been in for like 2 additional sessions for Lux. Yeah, but I really like most of it. We got all at once. I'm not obligated. I'm not. I mean, why wouldn't I want to go back in and do more months? You know what I mean? But no, they don't pay me enough to, like, you can like pay someone enough to like own them for a franchise or whatnot, or like buy them in advance, but like not for video games. And frankly, half the time they'll be like, in video games it'll be more common to be like, as someone's price point grows, to like just find someone to voice match them that you can get at a lower price point. Rather, like it's usually the opposite happens than that. But yeah, it's interesting because of the way that they add stuff in. I think I've only ever had to go in for 2 additional things. It's an interesting thing that like with downloadable content and as certain games grow, that you do have to kind of go back. And what's funny is if there's been enough time, sometimes there's something in you that's changed so much that like, in a way, like I feel like I can't even sound like them again. There was like, I remember when I did Kappa Mikey, Mitsuki, the very end of that, I remember being like, I'm not actually sure I can do her voice, like I'm not actually sure I can get as high as she was, because just like something in me had changed, and like my voice had changed, so I was like, I don't even think I can get that high anymore, like I don't think I can do that anymore. So thank goodness, so far, every time I've had to go in, I still feel like, oh yeah, I got her, I know who she is, and they sometimes like play it back, and you play this game of like, if you hear it, will you remember what your idea for the character was? You know what I mean? Like, do I remember like what she felt like, what my idea was for her? And but Lux is pretty easy because she's just like the most like perky, positive, like happiest version of me. So like I just get to go in there and be like, all I have to do is like walk in that booth and have the time of my life, and it's probably going to be Lux, you know? So
Except for the laugh apparently, right?
you know what? Honestly, that's like the closest to my actual laugh. And it's so funny to be, I know, it's so sad. Like, I didn't really remember, and because everyone was talking about it in such an iconic way, and I was like, what? And so at the one convention where the girl like pulled it up on her phone and played it, and I was like, and everyone's like, ha, yeah, and I'm like, I'm just like wilting. I was like, And it's one of those moments where you're like, do I tell the truth or do I lie? Do I tell the truth or do I lie? And I was like, okay, honestly, it's kind of my laugh. And then everyone was like busted up laugh. I was like, thanks guys, thanks a lot.
I thought the laugh was just legit funny, like nothing obnoxious about it.
Yeah, she just. But I mean, like again, it's like the perkiest, happiest version of me laughing. But if you're already kind of like a happy, like full of light, like perky person, and then on top of that you're in your happiest place that now you as that character are laughing, it's like perky times 5, and that's what you get. Is that laugh. Actually, I saw someone yesterday who was like cosplaying with her like new skin, with her new look, her like upgraded look. I think she looks awesome. I think she's so pretty. I'm so excited. Hi. Ears. Yes, you're like, yeah. She looks good. She looks good. Now I just need her like to get another like power upgrade. You know.
Good luck with that.
Back to the front for a little. Actually, I had a funny. I was doing laundry at my apartment in LA, and my downstairs neighbor was. He was like taking stuff out of the dryer, and I was just putting stuff in the wash, and we were just talking. I was like, "Oh, hey, Neil, how's it going? I haven't seen you. I heard you got a new job. That you're like out in like Long Beach or something." He's like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Oh, that's because such a drive, you know." Blah blah. So we're chit chatting about his new job, and I was like, "So what are you doing? What are you doing?" I knew he was an editor. I was like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Oh, well, I work for this game company." And I was like, "Oh yeah, what company?" And he was like, "Oh, well, it's this company, and they basically have this like one big game, and I do all their like and they like play it, like there's like professional gamers who like play it, and they have like tournaments, and you know I do all the like interviews with the players, like cut it together. Like we had this big event at the Staples Center recently, where I went, and I like filmed it, and I was just like listening to all this and going like and I was like, yeah, what's the game? And he's like, oh, it's called League of Legends, and I was like, yeah. He's like, you know it? And I was like, I'm Lux. And he was like, he was like, what? And I thought he was just like, because he worked there, you know what I mean? And like, but apparently he was like, I play Lux. I've been playing Lux for 4 years. Oh my God. And I was like, it was like the weirdest like fan moment that happened. And then the next 2 times I saw him, he was like pulling out, and I was walking, he was like pulling out of the driveway, and I was like walking by or going to my car, and he was like, and he rolled out, I was like, hey, there's Lux! Hey, Lux! So he started just like yelling Lux at me, like across until our other neighbors were like, what? And he's like, oh, I just, she's in the video game that, I think that he felt like he was nerding out too much, so then he stopped telling the story. But it was just how random that it turns out that my downstairs neighbor ends up like being the editor for all the like gaming stuff for Lux.
So does he still nerd out around you, or has he like toned it down now?
Well, actually, he moved out. He moved out to, no, it's good for him. He moved out to A, be closer to his job, and B, to live with his girlfriend. So we all wish them well, but he's lovely. But that was like the weirdest. Because I kind of, like in a situation like this, you kind of go like, oh, that's a potentiality. It's a potentiality that I could be talking to any given person at this convention, and then I worked on a project that they know of. You know what I mean? That's a high potentiality. But like in regular life, like just doing laundry, it was like, and I'd known him for like 2 years already, and it had just never come up. Like, I guess he didn't know that I was like a voice actor. Like, it just never came up in any conversation. And then when I did meet his girlfriend, like months, like actually when they were moving out, he was like, oh, he was like, oh, this is Carrie's minute. He's like, she's Lux. That's how he introduced me the next time. And I was like, this is something. All right, okay, yes.
Okay, so I know that you do Mokuba Kaiba for the last season of Yu-Gi-Oh! And Kizara.
Yeah.
Is the process for getting ready for Mokuba just because he's a tiny little kid and he's also a boy? Is it different? Because Kizara's a girl and you're a girl, but I mean.
Well, I would say, I guess the answer to that question for me is like, well, Kisara is actually very, like, I have a sort of very breathy quality to my like natural voice. And so Kisara was actually super easy for me, and I went in and I read for her, and I was like, oh my God, this is so easy, this is so nice. I don't have to like do anything. I was like, I just get to like, and she was so like just like lovely and sweet. Like, so there was like, I was like, oh, it's like a breath of fresh air to like come in and play this character. I was like, oh, I really hope I book her. And I actually auditioned for her and didn't hear that I booked her for like months. And so I thought that she'd already recorded, because usually when you audition for something, like they're recording it within a couple of weeks, usually. So, but I didn't hear for like the longest time, so I didn't think I booked her. So when I did, it was really fun. But Mokuba was actually, like, he's a boy, and for me, boys are kind of hard to do, which is a weird sentence to say out loud. Weird. But so for Mokuba, like, gee, yeah, he was like, make sure you eat a full breakfast, make sure you're already like downing tea, a lot of honey, and like you had it, like you prep it and you bring it into the thing with you, because you know, and like it doesn't, I don't even like wait for it to get sore, like I'm just drinking between every take anyway, because he's just like, he just takes a lot of it, because he is like young and small and spunky and scrappy, that he just takes a lot of like physical energy and a lot of like vocal energy, and also, you know, Eric Stewart actually directed me in that. And Eric's a tough director. I mean, he's amazing in that he knows exactly what he wants, but he's tough in that he knows exactly what he wants. You know what I mean? So he's like, you know, and not like a sound. He's not like a, I need you to say it this way. Like, that's not a good director. But he just like the quality or like the emotional aspect. Like he knows where that character needs to be, because he knows the show, like just backwards and forwards, right? And so, you know, and he has like such a reputation for being so like tough that I'm walking in, I'm like, oh god, Eric's supposed to be really hard, but I sort of like, very early on in like our first session, I was like, oh, I get why people think you're tough. I was like, no, I get that. I was like, I grew up with a neighborhood full of boys. I was like, I get you. So we worked together, but there was definitely like, I remember there was a one line that was a pickup line that I could not get right. I could not get it right, and it was like a pickup that was like, they were doing it at the beginning of my session because they needed it, and they literally were like waiting for him to record it and email it to them so they could finish the mix. Like it was like due 10 minutes before I got there. You know what I mean? It was like one of those situations, and I could not. Sometimes the animation is such that like, you get like so used to responding to the animation and lip flaps and stuff that like you can just sometimes like some part of you goes on autopilot. But like if a mouth is still open, or if it goes like I'll be like like, and so like the inflection will change or something. And there was something about the animation and about my understanding of it versus what it needed to be, and it just wouldn't go in. It wouldn't go in, or like I was like revving up, or like from the line before, I just kept like going, like that would make me go in a certain direction. Like I don't know what was happening, but I could not get this line. And he'd be like, it's like tennis shoes, Carrie, tennis shoes, not tennis shoes, tennis shoes. Just like, hey, I have a pair of tennis shoes. I have a pair of tennis shoes. And I'd be like, I have a pair of tennis shoes. And then I would do it, and they'd be like, tennis shoes. And I'm like, no. And I'm like, And I was like sweating bullets and like melting in the booth. Like my brow was like, oh my god. Like it was like my second session. I was like, I'm gonna get fired. Like all the worst things were going through my head. I was like, I can't do it. And so finally, I don't know what happened, but I just like, the one time that I was like, tennis shoes, and I like felt I heard it happen and felt my jaw at the same time, and I was like, that's what I was like, and I knew that I'd done it wrong. I was like, no, they were like, all right. And then because I finally put it together what was happening. So, and I'd said it enough times that I like kind of knew the timing. I closed my eyes. I closed my eyes, I heard the beeps, and I just did the line with like without even looking. And then he was like, thank you! And I was like, oh god! So like there was just something in the animation and the thing that was like, so I literally was just like, so sometimes if I struggle, I've only had to do this a few times, but if I'm really, really struggling with something and I just cannot, it's just in a certain rhythm, it's just in there, I sometimes will just be like, can you just give it to me? Can you just give it to me I can't hear it any other way right now? And then sometimes the director will be like, oh, they'll just literally, I'll ask for a line reading, they'll give it to me, I'm like, okay, fine. But even sometimes, and I'll be like, okay, ready? No, I'm ready. Beat me in, and I'll just like literally close my eyes and then just like do it, because there's something clearly in the animation that's like tripping me up, and so I'll just be like, no, I'm going in blind, guys, going in blind. They're like, all right, but they think I'm crazy until it works, and they're like, we'll take it, you know. And so you sort of feel like you learn a million tricks, and I think it's funny because the directors are clearly work with enough people who do enough weird stuff that they're like, all right, that when you work with them enough, they start to learn your things. And so then they'll start to ask for it. They'll be like, go in blind, Carrie, just go in blind. I'll be like, oh, you know that works for me, okay, perfect. Or, you know what I mean, you start to have like a shorthand with them. So that's like, that's a fun part. But it was in that line with Mokuba that I was like, oh, you gotta make sure you're not getting too attached to because I have a habit of like, if they stop talking, I'll just stop talking, and they'll be like, and your line sounds a little clipped. I'm like, oh, sorry. And they're like, don't watch the animation. Don't worry, go, if they start talking, don't worry about it, don't worry about it. But it's like, you can't help but like, there's some party that's just like so used to like matching it that you can't. I actually did Rhythmo, but this is totally gonna go off on another subject right now. I did Rhythmo Band recently because I'm working on the Miraculous Ladybug, which is coming out of France. Yeah. I play Alia, the best friend. She's really fun. But they do it differently. They have like, it's like karaoke style. Like it's handwritten. Okay, there's like this band at the bottom of the screen. And it's like, the lines are like handwritten. And like, there'll be character lines in the top, middle, and the bottom, whatever. And then it'll say like, Alia. So for this scene, you'll know that all yours, or this episode, all your lines are gonna be in the middle, right? And it's handwritten, and they'll stretch out or shrink the handwriting to do the timing of the line. And then there's this like this red bar that just like goes across it. And as the red bar crosses the line, that's when you should be saying how it should be matching up to the lip flap.
Amazing.
But like you don't, like in like regular dub, you look down, I memorize the line, and you hear the beeps, you can watch it. But this one, you're sort of like reading and watching at the same time. Like you're either reading on your peripheral or like watching on your peripheral or whatever. And it was actually really hard at first. And I was like, oh my God, what is this? And the engineer was like, hour 20. It sinks in at hour 20. They're like, don't, because I was like, am I horrible at this? Like, is everyone else like knows how to do this? Like, what is happening? And they're like, he's like, hour 20. I was like, all right. And literally, all of a sudden, like it was such a struggle. It was so weird. And then literally, at about an hour 10, hour 15, all of a sudden it just like all totally made sense. And I was like, and I was like hitting all the timings. And I was like, oh. I go, what time is it? He's like, hour 15. And I was like, oh, that is. So it's like, it was taking everyone about that long for it to like sink in because it was like this different time frame. But that was my, and unfortunately I just found out I'm out of time. So that was my little extra story about Rhythmo Band. But honestly, you guys, thank you so much for coming by on a Sunday, on the last day. And I had such a great weekend. Thank you so much. Everyone drive safe, get home safe. Enjoy your swim, sir. Your swim. Swim safely. Do you have to drink a lot of water before you do that? How do you carry your food? No food, just swim. Just non-stop for like 15. You just like grab fish, like raw fish that are swimming by and just like bite into them. Yeah, perfect. Sounds great. All right, but anyway, thank you so much. This isn't mine, I'm throwing out someone else's trash. No.